Good afternoon and welcome to this first celebration in Geneva of the International Day of Women in Diplomacy, shattering glass ceilings, recognizing female diplomats' contributions within the UN system. It is my honor to welcome His Excellency Mr. Omar Sniber, President of the Human Rights Council, and Ms. Tatiana Valovaya, Director General of the United Nations Office at Geneva, who will deliver welcoming remarks. Ms. Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of the UN Conference on Trade and Development, who will provide a keynote address. And we will also hear keynote remarks from His Excellency, Mr. Dennis Francis, President of the General Assembly, by video message. I also wish to welcome our distinguished panelists. Her Excellency, Ms. Mayra Mariela McDonald Alvarez, Permanent Representative of the Plurinational State of Bolivia to the United Nations Office and other international organizations in Geneva, and Gender Focal Point for the Human Rights Council. Ms. Pamela Koch Hamilton, Executive Director of the International Trade Center. Ms. Musonda Mumba, Secretary General of the Convention on Wetlands. Ms. Nada Al-Nashif, United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, and Ms. Catalina de Bandas, Representative of the Director General of IOM for Partnerships, Advocacy, and Communications. Ms. Doreen Bogdan Martin, Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union, will deliver her presentation as a panelist by video message. And Ms. Amina J. Mohammed, United Nations Deputy Secretary General, will deliver concluding remarks by video message. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, I am honored to be here to celebrate the remarkable achievements of women in the field of diplomacy, and I would like to extend UN Women's gratitude to the Office of the President of the Human Rights Council and the Permanent Mission of the Plurinational State of Bolivia for all their efforts to make this celebration a reality. On June 20th, 2022, the General Assembly declared June 24th as the International Day of Women in Diplomacy, passing a resolution by consensus that emphasized the crucial role of women's equal participation at all decision-making levels in achieving sustainable development, peace, and democracy. Women impact the world of diplomacy by challenging discriminatory social norms intended to limit their leadership and participation in a field traditionally dominated by men. Their leadership styles, expertise, and priorities broaden the scope of issues under consideration and the quality of the outcomes. Women in diplomacy continue to define international normative frameworks that integrate the needs and aspirations of women and girls in all of their diversity. Since the launch of the system-wide strategy on gender parity in 2017 by the Secretary General, we have made significant strides towards building a gender equal and more inclusive UN system. According to the Office of the Focal Point for UN Women in the UN Gender Parity Dashboard, gender equality has been achieved amongst senior leadership at Undersecretary General and Assistant Secretary General levels for the first time in the UN's history in 2020. Additionally, parity has also been reached among heads and deputy heads of missions and resident coordinators. Evidence shows that women in diplomacy influence decision-making processes with sustainable outcomes, including in peace processes. Still, there is so much to be done. Women remain underrepresented in positions of power, including in top diplomatic posts. Women make only 26% of permanent representatives of permanent missions to the UN based in New York, 35% in Geneva, and 33% in Vienna. It's time to recognize and celebrate the ways in which women are breaking barriers, making a difference in the field of diplomacy, including multilateralism. Before we continue, let me mention a few housekeeping points. Following the presentations by our panelists, we will hear from two distinguished discussants from the floor, and then I will open the floor to delegations for their statements. As This is an informal celebration. Interpretation is not being provided, and there is no official list of speakers created through the usual registration system. States wishing to participate in the discussion will be invited to register at a later stage by raising their nameplates, and members of civil society are invited to register at the list of speakers desk to my left. The speaking time limit for delegations will be 1.5 minutes in order to allow for a maximum number of speakers to be able to take the floor. I now have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Obar Sniber, President of the Human Rights Council. Mr. President, you have the floor.